For the longest time, I deliberately kept my distance from the police. I believed it was the right move not to pressure them, but years have passed with zero progress. Absolutely no movement has occurred, and my patience is gone. The current lead detective on the case is from Scurry County. He once mentioned that he wouldn't mind if this took 20 years to solve. Well, I certainly mind if it takes that long. The individual who harmed my child shouldn't be free for 20 years. In every criminal investigation, there's a turning point, a pivotal instant when the situation shifts and the facts begin to surface. That instant arrives early in this film, and its impact is stunning. December 27th, 2010, in Colorado City, Texas, a peaceful community of just 4,000 residents, nestled in the vast expanse of West Texas, roughly 230 miles from Dallas. It's the sort of place where residents don't lock their doors and everyone keeps an eye on their neighbors. Typically, the most significant event on a Tuesday night would be the high school football game. No one in that town could have imagined they were on the verge of hosting one of the most upsetting criminal cases in the history of Texas. Yet, on that chilly December morning, an event inside a simple house on Chestnut Street would deeply fracture the community and alter a father's life. For years, he would search for his daughter. 13-year-old Haley Dunn was a cheerleader, a saxophone player in the band, and an athlete in volleyball, basketball, and softball. She adored school and her friends, and she made a point to cross the street daily just to greet her father. She was intelligent and vibrant. All who knew her agreed she embodied the spirit that makes a small town feel like a close-knit home. Then suddenly, she vanished. Without a farewell, a message, or any verified sightings, absolutely nothing. However, a specific detail sets this case apart from nearly any other you will encounter in true crime documentaries. As detectives questioned the individual nearest to her disappearance about where to search for the missing 13-year-old, he named a particular county, an isolated area over 20 miles away. He offered the location instantly. Years later, her body was discovered in that very spot. The detectives posed another question, inquiring who they should focus on. They asked who he suspected was involved in the child's vanishing. His response, uttered calmly, was just a few words long. Both of us. This is the true crime documentary about Haley Dunn. It's a story filled with unresolved questions, astounding missteps by investigators, and a father's devotion that kept his daughter's memory alive. An investigation spanning more than a decade yielded a single arrest, but has yet to provide the justice the family is owed. Continue watching, because by the end of this film, you will be wrestling with the same question that has haunted this community for years. How could a crime of this nature occur in a tight-knit town and remain a mystery for so long? To grasp the events concerning Haley Dunn, we must return to the very morning it started, not when her father discovered she was missing, not when authorities were alerted, but on the morning of December 27, 2010, the final day, she was seen alive by family. Haley had been at her father Clint's house across the street for Christmas and the day after. According to her grandmother, Connie, the girl had been in truly high spirits during that time. She felt joyful, excited, and was particularly delighted with her new iPod from Christmas. That was typical Haley, energetic and vibrant, a teen whose presence could brighten any space. On the evening of December 26th, David, Haley's 16-year-old brother, spent the night at a friend's home. Haley remained at the house, playing video games until late, seeming entirely at ease and normal. Nothing that night gave any hint that the next 24 hours would be so pivotal. Then, on December 27th, at 5:30 a.m., Shawn Atkins, who was dating Haley's mother, Billie Jean Dunn, departed for his job. His destination was Snyder, Texas, about 50 miles from home, which was where he worked. Roughly 60 minutes later, Billie Jean also rose, prepared herself, and departed for her 12-hour shift. She paused at Haley's doorway to check on her daughter before she left. Haley was sound asleep in her bed, and the scene appeared perfectly ordinary. Billie would later state she figured Haley, upon waking, would follow her usual routine of visiting her dad across the street. Additionally, Billie left her mobile phone behind, ensuring the children could contact someone if necessary. That morning, Haley Dunn was by herself in the house. This is the point where the narrative ceases to be simple. Over in Snyder, an unusual event was unfolding. Shawn Atkins got to his workplace around 6 in the morning. By his own telling, a mere 10 minutes after arriving, he got into a sharp disagreement with his supervisor and resigned immediately. He claimed to have been dismissed. He said his boss fired him. His story varied with each telling, but his manager gave a conflicting report to police. The manager stated that Shawn came in, purchased a beverage, handed over his uniform, and left immediately. He was gone by 6:10 a.m. There was no dispute or conflict. He just chose to go. So, a little more than 30 minutes after Billie Jean departed, Shawn Atkins was without a job, his whereabouts unknown, driving back toward Colorado City. He had a full day ahead, and a 13-year-old girl was by herself on Chestnut Street. The events that followed are what caused this criminal investigation to completely unravel. Shawn claimed that after departing Snyder, he went straight to his mother's in Big Spring to file for unemployment on her computer. He asserted he was there for hours before returning to Colorado City. He maintained he returned home close to 3 in the afternoon and saw Haley around 3:15, right before she allegedly went to her dad's place. That was his version of events. At first glance, it may have seemed plausible, but there was a single problem. Phone records are objective truth, and the data from Shawn's cell tower pings painted a very different picture. That morning, from 6:35 to 6:56, his phone pinged a tower in Colorado City, almost 50 miles from Big Spring, and a short drive from where Haley was by herself. While the data showed he did get to Big Spring, it wasn't until 9:38 a.m., almost 3 hours later than he'd originally stated. He also remained in Big Spring until 2:40 that afternoon. The timeline just doesn't add up. If Shawn departed Big Spring at 2:40 and Colorado City is almost 40 miles distant, no scenario exists where he was with Haley Dunn at 3:15. The timeline fails. It was never plausible, and authorities suspected this almost immediately. Meanwhile, in Colorado City, Haley's dad, Clint, was having a normal afternoon, waiting for his daughter to knock on the door. She came by every day. Sometimes it was before school, other times after, or occasionally just to pop in and say hi. It was their ritual, something Clint depended on. But on December 27th, his door stayed shut. His phone remained silent, and as the afternoon bled into evening, the familiar, comfortable quiet began to feel deeply unsettling. At about 2 p.m., a text was sent from the phone Billie left for the children. The message was for one of Haley's friends, containing just 4 words. "What are you doing?" A reply never came. This might have been the final message ever sent by Haley from that phone. Around 4 in the afternoon, David, Haley's brother, arrived home. He found the front door was locked. He knocked, and knocked again, but got no response. So David did what a typical teenager might do. He found a window and slipped inside. Once in, he saw Shawn Atkins standing there in the hallway. David would later describe Shawn's expression as pure shock, like a deer in the headlights, bewildered, stunned, like a man not expecting anyone to come through that door. That evening, Shawn collected Billie from work. When they arrived back at the house on Chestnut Street, Haley wasn't there. Billie asked Shawn about her whereabouts. He claimed Haley had left on foot for her dad's house, and then was going to stay the night at her friend Mary Beth's home. Clint Dunn said that was false. Haley never made it to his house that day, not even for a moment. That was my entire day. And then I got home. I'd say around 3 o'clock. I arrived and saw Haley watching television in the living room. I went to the bedroom me and Billie share, and she came in to tell me she was going to her dad's and staying with a friend. Then she took off. I was then by myself for an hour at most. After that, David and his friend came by, and I went to his room where they were into video games and stuff. Then Billie phoned and let me know that, her replacement had shown up, so she could leave a little earlier than usual. So I headed up to the hospital in Snyder around 6 o'clock to get her, and we came right back and went to sleep pretty soon after. And all this time, you assumed Haley was with a friend? Yes. What time did she mention she was planning to leave? What time Haley was leaving? Uh, I'd guess it was somewhere between 3 and 3:30 when she mentioned she was going. It was pretty soon after I got home. I'm not really sure about the exact time. Does she usually call to check in? Or is it normal for her to be out of contact for this long? It's pretty standard for her not to call, since she does that when she stays over at a friend's place. She's just back the following morning. But when Billy phoned Mary Beth's family the next morning, her parents confirmed it. Haley was never there. She wasn't expected. No arrangements had been made. And when authorities inspected Haley's bedroom, their discovery made the entire story completely unravel. Nothing had been taken. Her outfits were still there. Her personal effects were in their place. Everything a 13-year-old girl would need for a sleepover was there. All of it was right where it belonged. Haley Dunn didn't pack a bag. She didn't say her goodbyes. She made no arrangements. She had simply disappeared. A missing person report wasn't filed until the afternoon of December 28th, a full 24 hours after she'd last been seen. When police got the report, their initial classification was a runaway case. That call would later invite intense criticism from law enforcement, journalists, and the public. Because the truth was, Haley Dunn was no runaway. She was a 13-year-old who adored school and her dad, and had never missed a day visiting his house until the day she was gone forever. When a child vanishes in a small town, the response is instant. It is deeply personal. It is universal. And in Colorado City, Texas, the mobilization happened in a flash. The second that word got out, that 13-year-old Haley Dunn hadn't returned home, the tight community of 4,000 people did what small towns always do. They came out. Neighbors, strangers, local merchants, high school kids, they all flooded the streets, wanting to help find her. Volunteers started forming search parties. Flyers were posted on every telephone pole, in every shop window, and on every notice board across Mitchell County. People walked the roadways, searched the vacant lots, and canvassed territory that police alone couldn't cover quickly enough. It was the kind of public response that proves why small towns matter. Everyone was desperate to find Haley. Everyone was desperate to bring her home. Everyone, it appeared, but the two people who lived in the house where she was last spotted. Haley's father, Clint Dunn, was out searching every single day, utterly tireless. He was checking dumpsters. He combed the alleyways. He covered every corner of Colorado City he could get to on foot. People there in those first days said Clint's agony was clear in his every action, in how he moved, in the way he scanned every passing vehicle, in how he wouldn't quit even when he was physically spent. That father wasn't going to stop until he located his daughter, and everyone knew it. But onlookers soon noticed a stark and deeply disturbing contrast. Haley's own mother, Billie Jean Dunn, readily engaged with the press, giving interviews, appearing on camera, and distributing flyers around town. However, as the search broadened to the more desolate and remote areas outside Colorado City, including open fields and scrubland, through swathes of West Texas landscape where a kid could simply vanish, Billie was conspicuously absent from the efforts. She later claimed she couldn't bear to look in those places, as it meant confronting the idea they were searching for her daughter's body, not a living child. That reasoning satisfied some, but many others found it suspect. Then there was Shawn Atkins, who didn't pass out a single flyer. He wasn't part of any search team, nor did he knock on doors to ask if anyone had spotted Haley. While the entire town was desperately trying to find the child, the last person known to have seen her was missing from the search efforts. Keeping his distance, he steered clear of volunteers and, for the most part, willingly avoided investigators. That deliberate absence was glaring. It became a topic of conversation, one that would be remembered. By day 9 of the search for Haley Dunn, there was still no trace of her. When I met with the Dunn family this morning, Texas Rangers were meticulously going through Haley's bedroom. If you look right over here, that's the window to her room. For now, I'm told the Texas Rangers have turned up nothing, with no indication of foul play or any evidence that she might have packed a bag and left on her own. After more than a week, Haley was still gone. Her mother admitted her frustration but was holding on to hope, saying, "I have to believe she left on her own and will come back, because if I don't hold on to that, I've got nothing." Local authorities inform me they are pursuing several leads at this moment. Multiple agencies are now involved, and the reward is still $25,000 for information leading to Haley. 4 days after Haley went missing, on New Year's Eve, an event took place that absolutely floored the people of Colorado City. A party was happening at the Chestnut Street house, the very place Haley had disappeared from just days prior. Guests came, music blared, and the gathering lasted late into the evening. Billie Jean later insisted she hadn't realized it was New Year's Eve, and that loved ones had just come by to show support. But right across the way, Clint Dunn was on his freezing front porch, armed with a set of binoculars, peering into the darkness for any trace of his daughter. He saw the lights and heard the celebration. In a truly gut-wrenching moment, he later revealed to the media what was on his mind. He stated he couldn't fathom how anyone could be celebrating while his daughter was out there, unaccounted for in the dead of a Texas winter. That visual, a heartbroken father on his porch watching a party unfold at the house across the street, would become a defining image for the public's view of the case. Meanwhile, the official inquiry was escalating quickly. On January 4, 2011, the Texas Rangers and the FBI formally entered the investigation into Haley's disappearance. That high level of agency involvement made it clear this was no longer considered a simple missing person case by local police. Over 100 billboards with Haley's picture and case details were put up all over Texas and into the states nearby. The story grabbed the nation's attention when host Nancy Grace covered the case on her show, interviewing Billie Jean Dunn on the air. Almost instantly, Haley Dunn's disappearance became a case the entire country was following. She was on national TV, and Nancy Grace appeared to be pretty tough on her. What was it like hearing her interrogate Billie that way? I was told about it. I was not present for her interview with Billie. I was speaking with the Texas Rangers, but I heard what happened, and it's aggravating, what she implied about me. But it doesn't really affect me because my sole focus is Haley. We just need her to get home safely. Is it hurtful when you think people might be blaming you? Someone who loves her. Yeah, that's painful. It is. Tell me about the dynamic between you and Haley. We have a wonderful bond. You know, I love her completely and I know she feels the same way about me. We get on perfectly fine. Okay. Is there anything further you want the public to understand about you or your role within the family? Because it's generating a lot of talk on the internet right now. Yeah. Regarding myself, Haley, Billie, and David, we all have a fine relationship, and I would never, ever bring harm to that little girl. I love her dearly, and I just pray for her safe return. On January 5th, the day after the Rangers and FBI joined the case, Billie told Shawn to get out of the house. Sources close to them said this wasn't totally unheard of. Their relationship was notoriously rocky, and they had split up and reconciled numerous times in the past. This time, however, things were different. The probe was intensifying, and what was coming out about their home life on Chestnut Street suggested something far more disturbing than the public knew. Journalists and law enforcement started to learn that the home environment had been unstable for quite some time. There were stories of excessive drinking and regular parties attended by adults, which fostered a general climate that was challenging for two teenagers to navigate. One reporter who followed the case extensively recalled getting information describing a household where the adults' lifestyle frequently eclipsed the needs of the kids living there. Then, investigators began digging deeper into the shared history of Billie Jean Dunn and Shawn Atkins, and what they uncovered was already on file with local police. Approximately 10 months before Haley vanished, police had been summoned to that same house on Chestnut Street for a domestic dispute between the two. That night, both Billie and Shawn had called the authorities on each other. The officers arriving at the scene described it as hostile and emotionally unstable. People had made threats. The matter had intensified quite a bit before officers could de-escalate it. Someone was being reported. What was the problem exactly? I ended things with this guy a few days back, and he's telling me he's going to end my life and make it unforgettable. I'm dealing with an issue. It's my ex-girlfriend. She's ingested a large quantity of my anxiety pills, which I assume she took from me. She also claimed she'd taken a lot of her own pain medication. Now she's talking about wanting to die after she called the police on me for threats. She was simply distraught over the whole thing. She's just not in her right mind at the moment. He's threatening her life. Dang it. Billy did it. Oh my, he's been at it all day long. Okay. However, just as they always did, the pair eventually made up. Shawn came back home. Life on Chestnut Street returned to normal. Individuals who knew Haley on a personal level started to share details during the inquiry that painted an even darker picture. Many of them claimed that Haley never felt at ease when Shawn Atkins was around. She didn't view him as a stepfather or any sort of father figure. According to her confidants, Haley was genuinely uncomfortable in his company. The things Haley would share with me about him. What sorts of things? She disliked him. She had no trust in him. He made her fearful. I need to get out of here right now. I'm staying here with you because something feels off with her grandmother. Connie would later share a particularly unsettling secret Haley had told her. That on several occasions, often late in the evening, she saw the silhouette of a person standing by her bedroom door, and it terrified her. Billie Jean, on the other hand, characterized the dynamic between Haley and Shawn as more of a friendly bond than anything else. But those closest to Haley painted a completely different picture. Detectives then shifted their focus entirely to the phone records and financial activity of both Shawn Atkins and Billie Jean Dunn, and their discoveries within those documents started to unravel nearly every part of the narrative they had been given. To begin with, there was the issue of Shawn's employment. He'd informed police that he was let go from his job in Snyder, yet his manager refuted that account, telling detectives Shawn had come in that morning, purchased a beverage, and handed in his work clothes before just quitting on his own. By 6:10 in the morning, he was already gone. When questioned about this, Shawn confessed he hadn't told the truth about being terminated. He claimed he wanted to avoid a fight with Billie Jean about being jobless. One falsehood cleared up, but the phone data pointed to something much graver than a fib about a job. Those logs indicated that from 6:35 to 6:56 that morning, Shawn's device was connecting to a cell tower located in Colorado City, the very town where Haley was by herself. Not Big Spring, nor the route between Snyder and Big Spring, but Colorado City. And although the data did place him in Big Spring later on, he didn't get there until almost 9:40 in the morning and didn't depart until 2:40 in the afternoon. Furthermore, other cell tower information put Shawn's device near Scurry County at some point on that very day. To an outsider, that fact alone might not seem significant, but detectives were looking very carefully because weeks before, when they had questioned Shawn about where he believed Haley might have gone, his reply was immediate: Scurry County. He mentioned it before any searches occurred there, before any clues led there, before any human remains were located there. He said it first. And later, when those same detectives asked Shawn point blank who they should be investigating, who he thought was responsible for Haley's vanishing, he offered a reply that stunned the room: the two of us. Lie detector tests were given to both Billie Jean Dunn and Shawn Atkins in the initial weeks of the inquiry. The initial set had to be completely redone since both parties were intoxicated during the testing. Billie claimed her state was due to her prescribed anti-anxiety drugs. The second set of tests revealed signs of dishonesty on several crucial questions from each of them. Shawn, for his part, abruptly left the polygraph session on at least 2 different times, declining to finish the test. He labeled it a persecution. He insisted detectives were attempting to coerce a confession from him for a crime he didn't commit. But even during the times he participated, the answers he provided, the ones that came back as honest, were the very ones that should have made sleep impossible for everyone. Scurry County, the two of us. And even then, there wasn't enough proof to justify an arrest. So the search efforts pressed on. The local residents kept coming out to help. The billboards continued to appear throughout Texas, and somewhere on that desolate, wide-open expanse of West Texas, the real story of Haley Dunn's fate was yet to be uncovered. I thank everyone for being here this afternoon and allowing me a chance to give a statement. Firstly, I want to talk straight to Haley in case she can hear me. No matter where you are, Haley, I am searching for you. So many people are out there looking for you. We all need you to come home unharmed. I just need to see and feel your lovely face. I love you so much. I'm desperate for you to be home. And, not a single minute passes that I'm not praying for you, or weeping, and hoping you were right here in my house. I can't bear not knowing your whereabouts or if you're okay. You are the most stunning girl I have ever seen, and it makes me so proud that God selected me to be your mom. Now, I want to tell anyone out there who has Haley to please release her. Just set her free. Leave her at a church, a school, or a police department, any place where she could access a phone to reach us or the authorities. Some have outright called me dishonest. Others theorize about my potential role in Haley's vanishing, or think I might be protecting someone. Certain people claim I'm holding back details and failing to help law enforcement. These accusations are false, but I feel I must now protect myself from these absurd claims, slander, and attacks on my character. In any criminal inquiry, a point is reached where the focus shifts from what's missing to the clues that were always there, concealed in plain view, simply waiting for a closer look. For Haley Dunn's case, that point arrived with what was uncovered inside the homes tied to the two main individuals in this story. And their discoveries didn't merely create new questions. They completely altered the investigation's path. As the weeks turned into January and then February of 2011, detectives were discreetly and systematically piecing together the world Haley Dunn had inhabited. From the outside, the Chestnut Street residence seemed like any other house in Colorado City, humble, ordinary. The type of place you'd pass by 100 times and never notice. But once inside, investigators found a reality far more unsettling than the neighborhood ever could have guessed. While searching the home, law enforcement found printed documents that immediately drew their focus. Billy Dunn and Shawn Atkins had printed pages of internet articles. The topics covered in those articles were far from light reading. The documents were fixated on serial murderers, acts of profound violence, and the deliberate targeting of relatives. Authorities cataloged and gathered all of it. When questioned later about the papers, Billy claimed that she and Shawn shared a personal fascination with macabre and grim subjects, mentioning that many true crime followers are drawn to similar material. This reason didn't convince the investigators on the case. But as troubling as those printed documents were, they weren't the most critical discovery authorities made in this stage of the inquiry. That moment occurred on February 24, 2011, almost 2 months after Haley vanished, when officials made a discovery that sent a jolt through the investigation and left Colorado City reeling. On a USB drive found inside the Chestnut Street house and also on a computer at the home of Shawn's mother, detectives found a collection of photos so profoundly disturbing that the findings were instantly escalated to the highest levels of the case. The complete count of images found between the two locations totaled over 100,000. The subject matter of those pictures concerned the exploitation of children. The sheer quantity of the find was astounding by any standard. Not a few dozen, not even hundreds, but over 100,000 separate files were stored in places where children had been living. Let that figure sink in for a second. 100,000. Despite the enormity of this find, no charges were immediately filed regarding those images. The evidence was sent to a grand jury for consideration. The county sheriff openly conceded the difficulty of the circumstances, stating that because multiple people resided in each home, authorities needed to prove exactly who was accountable for those files before making an arrest. It was a correct legal stance. But for the family and public observing from afar, the lack of swift justice was excruciating and incredibly hard to comprehend. There was another element related to these findings that Haley's father, Clint, later revealed, adding one more layer of frustration to an already unbearable ordeal. After police collected a laptop as evidence and stored it at the local station, Shawn's stepfather supposedly went to that same station and insisted the laptop be given back. And as Clint tells it, that very evidence, stored at a police station during an active murder investigation into a missing girl, was returned. It has never been publicly clarified whether that action affected the case's outcome. But for those who had been advocating for Haley from the start, it was another instance among many that made justice seem utterly out of reach. The inquiry continued, and on March 17, 2011, it led to the very first arrest in connection with the case, although it wasn't the one the public had been expecting. That morning, police officers visited the residence where Billy and Shawn were staying to question Shawn about the investigation. When the officers showed up, Billie Jean claimed Shawn wasn't present, but after entering with a warrant, investigators located Shawn Atkins inside the home, hidden from view. He was there all along, and Billy had looked the officers straight in the eye and said he wasn't. Billie Jean Dunn was taken into custody for providing false statements to police. In June of 2011, she was given a suspended 90-day jail term, plus 1 year of probation for lying about where Shawn was. She completed her probation over 250 miles away in Travis County, where she and Shawn had moved together after the events in Colorado City. The fact that the pair had left the very town at the heart of an ongoing search for a missing child, a child that was Billy's own daughter, was not overlooked by police or the community watching the case progress. The couple finally went their separate ways in 2012, and in the time that followed, Billie Jean Dunn started to shift away from the stance she had held in the first days of the investigation. She later informed journalists that as time passed and the evidence grew, and with both local police and the FBI still pointing to Shawn as their main person of interest, she began to think that Shawn was probably involved in what occurred to Haley. She said she couldn't truly explain why she remained with him after her daughter went missing, but she stated she was no longer shocked by what investigators believed about him. Still in Colorado City, Clint Dunn never went anywhere. He never gave up looking. He never ceased calling and texting investigators, insisting they continue to pursue the case. He posted about Haley on social media relentlessly, not only on key dates or when the media showed interest. He did so relentlessly, without fail, for months that turned into years. He was adamant that his daughter's case would not become just another forgotten file. He was resolved to keep her memory alive. And in a twist nobody could have foreseen, his persistence would ultimately lead to one of the most surprising breaks in the entire case. However, before that break finally came, another period of agonizing silence had to be endured. As 2011 became 2012, and then 2013, Haley Dunn remained missing, and the question of her whereabouts haunted everyone involved, from the investigators and volunteers to all the neighbors and every friend, weighing on them constantly. Then, on March 16, 2013, someone hiking in a secluded field in Scurry County, Texas, near Lake J.B. Thomas Reservoir, over 20 miles from Colorado City, made a grim discovery. In 2013, officials were alerted to human remains found close to Lake J.B. Thomas in the southwestern part of Scurry County. These remains were transported to the University of North Texas's Center for Human Identification to undergo DNA testing. Then, on April 26, 2013, the district attorney's office in Scurry County got official word in writing. The remains were confirmed to be Haley Dunn. What was left of a skeleton was collected from the site and was sent off for a full forensic examination. The DNA results from the University of North Texas verified the investigators' worst fears from the past 2 years. It was indeed Haley Dunn. She had been in that very county, the one Shawn Atkins mentioned from the start, ever since she went missing, long before any searches were done there. Her death was officially classified as a homicide by the medical examiner. Clint Dunn would later reveal that police believed the probable cause was blunt force head trauma, inflicted by some kind of weapon. Authorities never revealed a murder weapon, nor did they announce any forensic evidence that pointed directly to a particular person. However, the case now had crucial elements it previously lacked: a definite crime, a known victim, and a specific place. And for the town of Colorado City, Texas, which had clung to the slim hope for over 2 years that Haley might miraculously be discovered alive, now had to confront the reality those nearest to the case had dreaded all along. Haley was gone, taken by someone. For Clint Dunn, the news brought an agony so profound it was nearly indescribable, yet it also sparked something different, a resolve that was stronger and more solid than ever. This was no longer just a case about a missing person. It was now a homicide inquiry. And Clint Dunn would not rest, not even for one day, until the individual who took his daughter's life was brought to justice. Heartbreakingly, it would be another 4 years before the family could finally give Haley a proper burial. Her mother, desperate for answers, is breaking her silence. It has been 6 years since 13-year-old Haley Dunn vanished after walking out of her father's Colorado City house. The town is located west of Abilene. While her body was discovered 3 years after she disappeared, the person who killed her is still free. The mother, an Austin resident, expresses her belief that justice is coming. "I still want to trust it when they say an arrest is imminent," she states, frustrated by the drawn-out legal and forensic process. It wasn't until January of 2017, over 6 years after she went missing, that Haley Dunn was finally laid to rest. 6 years had passed with no arrests. This is a special kind of agony that only families of cold cases can truly understand. It's different from the acute shock of an initial loss, though that grief is certainly a part of it. It is a duller ache, one that seeps deep inside you over the passing years and never truly goes away. It's the torment of waiting, seeing years go by while your family's destroyer remains free. It's calling detectives only to get the same vague responses, time after frustrating time. In Clint Dunn's case, that agony shaped his entire existence from 2013 for nearly a decade. His daughter's body was recovered. Her death was officially a murder. Investigators had a single, clear person of interest. But still, the years ticked by with no progress, no indictment, and no justice. For the longest time, I tried to give law enforcement space. I figured the best approach was not to pressure them, but it's just been far too long with nothing happening. There's been zero movement. And frankly, I'm done being patient. You know, the current investigator on the case from Scurry County once told me he didn't care if this took 20 years. Well, I care if it takes 20 years. The person who harmed my child shouldn't be walking the streets for 20 years. You think that person is still out there somewhere? Yeah. I believe he's right here in this town, Big Spring, Texas. In Big Spring. You think? I know for a fact he was 2 months back. Do you have a specific person in mind? Shawn Atkins. Shawn. You're saying it's Shawn Atkins? He's the only one they've ever named. Yep, and I believe Billie Jean is hiding something. Her story has too many holes. She's been too evasive, and she's not telling everything she knows. But Clint refused to back down, not for a moment. He continued to phone the detectives. He sent texts and emails. He appeared in person, insisting on answers. And when those calls and messages failed to speed things up, he changed his entire approach. He moved his battle online, starting to post consistently about Haley across social media platforms. It wasn't only for milestones like her birthday or the anniversary she vanished, but steadily, every week and every month, he would post pictures of her. He provided any new information on the case. He spoke candidly of his pain, his resolve, and his vow to prevent his daughter's memory from becoming a forgotten file in some West Texas archive. Over time, his posts were seen by thousands upon thousands of people. And then, in 2019, their message found the perfect person at the perfect time. An anonymous source, who was a high school student in the spring of 2011, saw one of Clint's posts, and it sparked a distant memory of something they discovered years before, right after Haley vanished. At that time, this individual had never even heard of Haley Dunn. They never drew a line between what they saw and any police investigation, media report, or missing persons case. For them, it was just a chance find that seemed totally ordinary and meaningless at the time. Because of this, they didn't report it, tell a soul, or think of it again until that moment in 2019 when Clint's post made them freeze. Instantly, the memory of that long-ago discovery was cast in a completely new light. The person contacted Clint directly to share what they had found so many years ago. What exactly those items were has never been shared with the public. Authorities have kept those specifics under wraps as part of the active case. Yet, what Clint later told reporters was hugely important on its own. He stated the items were located in a place that search parties had combed through many times during the most intense, early stages of the search. It was a zone that volunteers and police had traversed, scoured, and deemed clear, but had somehow overlooked something. That single piece of information stirred up serious and unsettling questions about what else may have been missed in those vital initial weeks, and it added a powerful new sense of urgency to a mystery that had been without resolution for far too long. At about the same time, another individual had been working tirelessly and discreetly behind the scenes on this case for many years. Her name was Erica Morris, a private investigator who had been connected with Clint on the case almost from the very start. Throughout the years, Erica made it her personal cause to maintain pressure on the official investigation, building contacts within the police force, and pursuing every tip that the official investigators either neglected or refused to follow. She had risen as one of the most relentless voices calling for justice in Haley's disappearance. Then, in the autumn of 2019, an email landed in her inbox that drew her attention directly back toward Shawn Atkins. Commencing in October of 2019, Erica started getting messages from women in West Texas and the surrounding region. The women recounted a series of troubling online interactions with a man who introduced himself as Casey. That name immediately clicked with Erica. Shawn Atkins's middle name was Casey. This was a connection she was not prepared to dismiss as a fluke. She had the women forward the images and videos the man was sending them. Upon reviewing the media, she was certain the man pictured was Shawn. She had dedicated years to analyzing this case and felt sure she knew precisely who she was seeing. On October 28, 2019, Erica went with one of the women to the local police department to make a formal complaint about the harassment. What transpired next was one of the most deeply frustrating setbacks in a case already filled with them. The officer on duty wouldn't even file the report. He claimed the woman's story wasn't believable and accused her of inventing the entire thing. With that, the matter was closed. But Erica Morris would not let it go. She composed and circulated an open letter aimed at law enforcement and the general public. Within the letter, she detailed her findings, the women's accounts, and her belief about its connection to the Haley Dunn investigation. She also delivered a sharp and specific warning: if Shawn Atkins was not apprehended, he would find more victims. Her statement wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't restrained. It was an explicit, urgent, and public warning for the record. For a while, her words resulted in no action. The months ticked by. 2019 gave way to 2020, yet no one was arrested. But in early 2021, the dynamic started to change. The district attorney of Mitchell County, Ricky Thompson, took a step that would finally push the case in the right direction after so long. He brought in a special law enforcement division designed for these exact situations, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit. This unit is a specialized group within the Texas Department of Public Safety, focused entirely on investigations that have stalled for years and require a new perspective, greater resources, and a fresh wave of investigative drive to get them moving again. The Texas Rangers Cold Case team performed a deep dive into every aspect of the Haley Dunn investigation, including the phone logs, the financial records, the polygraph reports, items taken from the residences, and the inconsistent timelines, along with the statements that never checked out all of it. After assessing the totality of the evidence and speaking with former investigators, they initiated a decisive legal action. They appeared in court to seek a warrant for a direct DNA sample from Shawn Casey Atkins. The warrant was approved on June 13, 2021. On that very day, more than 10 years since Haley Dunn was first declared missing, more than 8 years since her body was located in a Scurry County field, and nearly 11 years after she disappeared from a house on Chestnut Street in Colorado City, Texas, Shawn Casey Atkins was arrested. He was officially charged with murdering Haley Dunn. The reaction from Colorado City tonight is raw and to the point. Shawn Atkins is behind bars at the Mitchell County Jail tonight, accused of the murder of 13-year-old Haley Dunn. Her disappearance happened over a decade ago. This community, you see, has invested more than 10 years into searching. They were searching for a young girl, for answers, and ultimately, for justice. We are one step nearer to that goal tonight. The apprehension of Shawn Atkins was the news Colorado City had been anticipating. The information spread like wildfire through the city, across Texas, and among the true crime followers who had tracked the case for a decade. The response was instantaneous and deeply felt. Individuals who had spent years calling for action and answers experienced a feeling they thought was long lost in this case. They felt hope. It was hope for Clint Dunn, the father who stood on his porch, watching a party unfold across the street through binoculars. The father who had inspected every dumpster, walked down every alley, made countless calls, and written endless posts. He was the man who, for 11 years, refused to let anyone forget his daughter's name. At long last, the man had the moment he'd spent years fighting for. He spoke with a calm deliberation born from years of grief and uncertainty. The man simply said that words could not capture how he was feeling. He gave his thanks to everyone who searched for Haley and all who pushed relentlessly for an arrest. Then he voiced the one belief that had fueled him for over a decade. His one hope, he stated, was for a court of law to finally deliver true justice. A public response to the arrest also came from Billie Jean Dunn. She confessed that she could not say she was surprised. She admitted to remaining with Shawn after Haley vanished, and said that looking back, she was unable to fully rationalize her choice. But she was thankful an arrest was finally made, she said, and that Shawn would have to account for what took place. Shawn Atkins was detained on a $2 million bond, a sum that showed the charge's gravity and the court's intent to keep him jailed as proceedings continued. In December of 2021, a grand jury officially charged him with murder and evidence tampering, with documents claiming he had assaulted Haley before intentionally hiding her body. For the first time in 11 years, there was a defendant in the case. There were charges, there was an indictment, and the justice system was now forced to address a case it had let languish for far too long. Investigates team. One page from the arrest warrant for Shawn Atkins was released by the Mitchell County District Attorney's Office. Authorities believe he is the one who killed Haley Dunn in Colorado City. Though Big Spring police took him into custody last month, the reason is unclear. When KCBD sought the warrant, we were referred to Mitchell County, where the DA refused, invoking Texas law, which they said barred access to the public file as it involved a child's alleged abuse and death. So, while we await the Attorney General's ruling, it has now been 10 days since we requested the complete arrest warrant and affidavit. Thus far, we have only this section of the warrant, directing any peace officer to apprehend Shawn Atkins for the murder charge from Colorado City, but this offers no insight as to what led Mitchell County to its determination. So, our investigative team will continue to pursue your right to information on what police allege led to Haley Dunn's death. In true crime, as followers know, an arrest does not mean a conviction. A charge is not a guilty verdict. And the journey from a court filing to a finding of guilt is usually longer, more complex, and more painful than outsiders ever expect. The residents of Colorado City understood this. Clint Dunn understood this. Erica Morris understood this. As the matter entered the courts and proceedings got underway, every individual tied to the story was poised to learn how arduous the path ahead would truly be. Because the struggle for Haley Dunn's justice was far from concluded, not by a long shot. There is a term used in the justice system that, on paper, appears sensible, procedural, and wholly impartial. Insufficient evidence. 2 words, sounding clean, clinical, and professional. However, for the relatives of a slain child who have awaited accountability for more than a decade, those 2 words sound anything but impartial. They ring out like a door slamming in a corridor that should have led to an answer. They feel like the end of a story that should never have concluded this way. And in June 2023, that phrase became the definitive statement on the Haley Dunn case. After more than a decade awaiting an arrest, after the indictment in December 2021, after a $2 million bond and formal murder charges, and the reinvigorated efforts from the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit, Mitchell County prosecutors decided to drop all charges against Shawn Atkins. The dismissal was without prejudice, meaning the potential for future prosecution was technically not closed, but the practical result was inescapable. Shawn Atkins departed the justice system a free man, and the case that had gripped a community for a decade reverted to its previous status, officially unsolved. The reasoning from prosecutors was direct in its legal basis, even if its effect on people was absolutely shattering. The case against Shawn Atkins was constructed almost exclusively from circumstantial evidence. No one witnessed what occurred in that house on Chestnut Street on December 27, 2010. No weapon was recovered and definitively linked to a suspect. There was not one definitive piece of forensic evidence a jury could see and declare beyond a reasonable doubt that this man alone was culpable for Haley Dunn's death. Cell phone data put him in different places at critical times. Polygraph results suggested untruthfulness. His own testimony had guided detectives straight to the county where her remains were later discovered. But indicating a direction is not the same as providing proof. And in the eyes of the law, proof is paramount. One agent on the case spoke out after the charges were dismissed. In a statement with wide coverage that resonated with all who followed the case, the investigator termed the dismissal a failure of justice. It was not a legal nuance, nor a procedural result, but a failure of justice. These words were from someone who was deeply involved with this investigation, who had reviewed the evidence personally, and who was certain the correct person was charged, but the system could not produce the outcome the evidence demanded. For Clint Dunn, the dismissal was yet another injury in a long series of injuries this case had dealt him. But anyone who had observed this man over the preceding years, who saw his incredible endurance, and his response to every hurdle this inquiry presented, knew this would not make him quit. Clint had watched from a porch with binoculars. He had looked through every trash bin in Colorado City. He had phoned detectives so often through the years that his sheer persistence became a part of the official case record. A father of his kind is not stopped by a prosecutor's dismissal, and he did not stop. At the time of this production, the Texas Rangers continue to classify Haley Dunn's case as an active, unsolved investigation. Shawn Atkins continues to be the primary person of interest in the file. A $3,000 Crime Stoppers reward is still available for information resulting in an arrest for her murder. That tip line is still active, and authorities continue to monitor the case. And recent reports indicate a renewed focus on the investigation, as fresh information and additional resources have been dedicated to finding answers. Through her legal counsel, Billie Jean Dunn has consistently denied any role in her daughter's disappearance and death. No criminal charges have been filed against her in Haley's murder. This part of the narrative, like so much of this story, has no clear conclusion. Private investigator Erica Morse is still on the case. She has refused to abandon the investigation, unconvinced that the dismissed charges represent the final truth about what befell Haley Dunn. And Colorado City, a small town with just under 4,000 residents, was permanently altered by the events on Chestnut Street that chilly December morning. The town has not forgotten what happened. Communities like this one have a way of remembering. Its residents remember Haley Dunn with the sorrow and guilt that haunts a town that feels it failed to protect a child, fueling a relentless demand for the whole truth to emerge. Because a comprehensive review of this case file reveals a crucial fact. This was never an investigation starved for evidence. The investigation had a distinct focus from the outset. Authorities had a person of interest early on, and the cell phone data pointed in their direction. Inconsistent timelines were present. Polygraph results raised red flags. And crucially, the main suspect indicated the very county where Haley's remains were ultimately located, a detail known from the investigation's initial stages. And still, due to a combination of factors, from forensic science limitations and the high bar for proof in court to choices made in the investigation's critical opening days, A conviction for Haley Dunn's murder has remained elusive. This isn't simply a matter of legal procedure. It is a deeply human issue. It's an issue with devastating impacts on a family and their West Texas town. And this is why such stories are so important to the true crime community, resonating far beyond the procedural facts and case details. Because tucked inside every cold case folder, for every name on a list of unsolved murders, for every reward that goes unclaimed year after year, there's a father like Clint Dunn, forever standing watch on his porch, still battling, and still ensuring the world never forgets. Haley Dunn was born in Colorado City, Texas, on August 28, 1997. She was on the cheer squad. She was a saxophonist. An athlete, she played volleyball, basketball, and softball. She cherished school, her friends, and her dad. So much so that she'd cross the street just to see him every single day. She was only 13 when somebody decided her life was worthless. She was entitled to a better fate than the one she met, and more justice than our legal system has managed to secure for her. This film chronicles what took place. It is also a declaration that this story has not concluded. The investigation remains active. A person of interest is still named, and her family's struggle for answers persists. And somewhere, there is a person with knowledge that could alter the course of this case entirely. If you know anything about the disappearance and murder of Haley Dunn, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit is still accepting all leads. The Crime Stoppers hotline is still available, and Clint Dunn continues to post online, still making calls, still advocating for his daughter, just as he has every day since December 28, 2010, because that is the promise of a father, and it is the justice Haley Dunn is owed.